This is Bow Lake, and I'm driving along, so I'll pan slowly in the hopes that you can see this. I won't know what it looks like until I get back, but I want to go see those grizzlies if they're around. Notice the glacier way at the back and way up high. Almost seems to be cascading down from that mountain. This is the Columbia ice fields in Banff National Park in Canada. You'll notice way up towards the top how it appears to cascade down. That probably represents various levels or mini cirques created by this glacier over the course of its origination. You can see very clearly how it has hollowed out or sculpted out this gorge, if you will, or glacial valley down from the mountain's top. You'll notice also up to the sides there are other glaciers that have formed and are creating glacial gorges at an earlier time and continue to do it at the much higher elevation. Now, can you guess, in looking at this glacier as I pan across and looking at this lateral moraine on the right side, what path this glacier has probably taken in the past? Of course you can. It swings to our right, or at least it swang to our right. How high would you estimate at one time, at the very least, that this glacier would be? What there defines, what do you see in front of you that defines the depth of the glacier, at least at one point? Certainly, it's the top of that lateral moraine, where the glacier would have been probably even with that height at one point in time, dumping its debris to the left as it saw it coming down the hill. Right where this red van is that you see is the remains of another such lateral glacier, moraine that we cannot easily see from this perspective, but that would have been this side of the boundary of the glacier as it continued down in that direction and out of our view. You'll also notice, if you look closely here, that even from this viewpoint we can see that the glacier's dimension of thickness drops off towards the left here. In fact, dropping off into a little valley that is beneath what is a slight plateau, beneath the top of the lateral moraine, but above that little valley. And that would indicate two things. One, that at one time the glacier was certainly up on that plateau, and number two, it has dropped off probably fairly significantly and fairly rapidly in geological terms. Swinging further to the north, we look at exactly the same kind of a dynamic. The gorge, the glacial valley, glacier at the top. The sheer cirque walls to the right. We can see also here the horizontal cracks in the glacier. This is quite natural. If you take a piece of Nat'l or a piece of some plastics and you begin to bend them, eventually the stresses will be such that it will cause that material to break or crack across the bending point, and that's exactly what you're seeing with a glacier.
On this model, you can see the Columbia ice field feeds several glaciers, including the Athabasca Glacier, which extends close to that of the Colorado. Glaciers move downhill very slowly due to gravity and pressure from upper layers of snow. The Athabasca Glacier moves at an average speed of 1 centimeter an hour, or 8 meters an hour. At lower elevations, where temperature glaciers are warmer and there is less snowfall, glaciers melt to form streams and rivers. Columbia ice field is the only location in North America where meltwater flows in three oceans, the Arctic, Atlantic, and Pacific. Meltwater fluctuates from season to season. Winter's cold temperatures mean there is less meltwater at the foot of the glacier, so they vanishes. But summer's one makes it so recede. Right now, the Athabasca Glacier is receding at a rate of 1 meters per year. It will reach as far as the location of this building. And whether the future of the Columbia ice field and its glaciers will they disappear eventually, or will they one time still be down? Science cannot say. There are just too many complex factors that affect glacial activity. One thing is for sure, the future please remember that slippery ice and deep crevasses make walking on the glacier quite dangerous. It should be attempted only if you have proper time of year and knowledge of glacier development. The Ice Field Center staff will be pleased to tell you more about the different ways you can complete your ice field experience. The Canadian Park Service wishes you a pleasant stay in the Columbia.
There are, in nature, powers so awesome, they dwarf human scale to insignificance. Titanic, elemental forces, unmerciful and unmoral, that shape the earth into landscapes so alien and surreal, they beggar imagination. Vast and incomprehensible as the great Athabasca Glacier must seem, it is but a teasing intimation of what lies beyond. Today you will travel back in time to a land that has changed little since the last ice age 10,000 years ago. Today you journey beyond the mountain wall. This is the Columbia Ice Field. 325 square kilometers of snow and ice, up to 400 meters thick. Surrounded by many of the highest mountain peaks in the Canadian Rockies, the largest ice field in the range, the largest in North America's subarctic interior. Straddling the British Columbia-Alberta border, in a position to intercept the moisture-laden winds from the Pacific. At elevations that ensure almost perpetual winter, the icefield complex stretching before you is a living reminder of the great ice sheets that covered these western mountains in ages past. Reaching outward, like arms from the icefield body, are 6 major outlet valley glaciers. The Athabasca, the Stanfield, the Dome, the Saskatchewan, the Castle Guide, and the Columbia. Meltwater from the ice field flows to 3 oceans, through the Athabasca and Mackenzie rivers to the Arctic, through the Columbia River to the Pacific, and through the North Saskatchewan eventually to Hudson Bay and the Atlantic, making the Columbia Ice Field the hydrologic apex of Canada. But to begin to appreciate the true immensity of the ice field, consider this. The Athabasca Glacier is only one of many glaciers that spill from the icy reservoir above and comprises just 2% of the entire system. Here in the high solitude above the snow line, each year snow falls, which never melts. It is within this enduring snowpack that glacial ice is formed. Loose, feathery snow becomes buried under successive falls and is gradually compressed and packed into spherical grains. As air is squeezed out and melting and refreezing occur, further compaction transforms the deeper layers into ice crystals and eventually into glacial sheets. The characteristic blue color results from the refraction of light caused by dust particles in the ice. When a critical thickness of ice has accumulated, gravity and other factors take over, and the layers of ice begin to move into the valley below. An irresistible force. As the ice flows, it follows the contours of the bedrock beneath, and whenever it encounters a cliff-like irregularity, the ice stretches, weakens, and buckles into spectacular ice falls, with pinnacles of ice stories high. The outer crust of a glacier is somewhat brittle, and when the surface ice stretches, it cracks and fractures into deep, dangerous fissures known as crevasses, some 40 meters deep. In summer, when the ice melts, the surface of the glacier becomes riddled with streams, which in late afternoon can rise to raging torrents. When these plunge into cracks and crevasses, the spiraling water carves drainways called moulins or mill wells. At the glacier's toes, they can sculpt extraordinary ice caves. The scouring action of the glacier grinds the mountains down, the resulting rubble being carried away by meltwater. In a single day of summer melt, the Athabasca Glacier alone disperses and deposits some 570 tons of rock, clay, sand, and silt. Though ice continually moves down the valleys, glaciers are subject to fluctuations of retreat when melt exceeds accumulation, and advance when accumulation exceeds melt. The Athabasca Glacier, as you can see, is presently in retreat. The Columbia Glacier is advancing. Glaciers, however, measure their lives in millennia, and such fluctuations are both minute and momentary when considered in the larger context. If we consider that ice, which formed on the ice field 150 to 200 years ago, is just now melting from the toes of its glaciers, we realize that we have met the ice field only recently, geologically speaking. It was only discovered, in fact, as recently ago as 1898, when Norman Colley and Herman Woolley climbed Mount Athabasca. For years afterward, because of the inaccessibility of the region, its only visitors were the handful of mountaineers, guides, hackers, and adventurers who came to marvel at the beauty and who have lent their names to its geography. The area became part of the Jasper Forest Park in 1907, but it wasn't until the Banff-Jasper Highway was constructed as a relief project during the Depression of the 1930s that the Columbia Icefield area became more easily accessible to the general public. Today, the icefield offers millions of visitors many enjoyable learning opportunities, while providing science with an outdoor laboratory in which to study the secrets of glaciation and world climate. For years now, scientists have been studying the Castle Guard Caves, the largest cave system in Canada and among the largest alpine caves in the world. The Castle Guard Caves tunnel many kilometers under the ice from the icefield's southern extremity. They have been called the Crypt of the Pleistocene and are believed to be one of the ancient drainage systems for past ice ages. Powerful and majestic though the ice field is, it is a sensitive environment that needs our protection. The Antarctic and Arctic ice caps, combined with ice fields and glaciers like this, cover 11% of the Earth's surface and anchor 75% of the world's fresh water in frozen reserve. Glaciers erode and reshape the landforms, transporting and depositing the materials of new soils. They exert tremendous physical and biological influence, creating harsh living conditions for plants and animals that live in alpine proximity. Survival is the reward for those able to adapt. Death is the price of defeat. Witness the fate of this moose, entombed by accident in glacial ice, to be released years later. Desolate and beautiful in its power, the Columbia ice field distills the mountains to their essence. Having discovered the ice field, we must respect it and protect it.
This is where I stayed on the night of the 21st, just west of Prince George. The place is swarming with mosquitoes. This is taken just north of Smithers, British Columbia, which is just south of Hazelton, probably 35 miles. This is referred to as Glacier Gulch, for the obvious reason that way up at the top, glacier. Now to pan south, pan northwest, excuse me. I think that what we're looking at here shortly is the beginning of that range of mountains that forms the eastern dimension of southeastern Alaska. And I think this may be it. Driving by up here on the highway, I spotted what looked like a good campsite, and I'll show it to you how you get here in just a second. I found this dirt road here, but it was narrow and fairly steep and no place to turn around down here, so I backed down. But it gives one of those super ideal campsites, and I'll show you the view from outside here. Nothing more spectacular, in my opinion, than having a campsite next to a raging little river like this. And this is just a small one that dumps into the really giant one about a quarter of a mile, half a mile down from here. Taking a few moments out to walk back here along the stream side. You can imagine what it must be like when the water in the early spring, when it's melting off, comes flying down through this narrow chasm from those glaciered mountains to the north that we can't see from here. And you can be sure that it must, because as I pan around, you'll get an idea of the floodplain right about where I'm standing and how wide this is. Just another slow pan as the sun settles down. This is a high mountain valley that is west of Terrace, British Columbia, not far, maybe 60 miles or so from Prince Rupert. But I thought what was spectacular through the field glasses might be interesting here, and that is this falls, which must be giant. What a thrill it must be to stand somewhere to the side of this. Just guessing from here, it's probably 100 yards or so across at its bottom part, as it drops into a little valley area that we can't really see from here.